At 2 a.m., Strait of Hormuz, the radar officer on the USS Abraham Lincoln isn't looking at a ship. He is looking at a cloud. 500 autonomous suicide drones and fast boats are converging on the carrier strike group from 3 different vectors. This is not a drill. This is the swarm strategy that analysts have feared for a decade. The enemy thinks they can overwhelm the U.S. Aegis system with pure numbers. They believe quantity has a quality all its own. They are about to learn that in modern war, math doesn't beat physics. Welcome to the nightmare scenario. A $13 billion fortress of American power, the USS Abraham Lincoln, is suddenly facing a threat that costs less than a used car. The enemy's calculation is simple cold logic. They know they cannot match the United States Navy ship for ship. They know that in a fair fight, they lose every single time. So they have chosen not to fight fair. They have chosen to flood the zone. Their plan is to force the carrier strike group to exhaust its multi-million-dollar interceptors against $2,000 drones, bleeding the American giant dry until its magazines are empty. It is a suicide mission designed to achieve a single goal: humiliation. But to understand why this is a suicide mission for the attackers and not the Americans, we have to look at the invisible architecture connecting every U.S. asset in the region. This is not 1945. The sailors on that deck are not looking through binoculars. They are part of a planetary network that saw this attack coming before the enemy pilots even started their engines. At 2:05 a.m., the enemy initiates Phase 1. Sudden silence. Across the Persian Gulf, a massive jamming signal erupts, attempting to blind the American radar systems. The enemy commanders are celebrating. They believe they have shrouded their approach in a digital fog. They think the USS Abraham Lincoln is now blind, deaf, and dumb, drifting helplessly in the dark while the swarm closes the distance. This is their first fatal mistake. They are fighting a war of 20th century radio jamming against a 21st century distributed lethality network. While the ship's local radar battles the interference, the view from space remains crystal clear. High above the atmosphere, the Space Force's SPIRS infrared satellites are watching the heat signatures of 500 small engines burning against the cold ocean surface. The data doesn't go to a command center in the Pentagon. It streams directly to the Combat Information Center of the carrier. The 4-second rule is in effect. From the moment of launch, the U.S. network identified the threat, categorized the velocity, and assigned a kill priority to every single drone. The enemy thinks they are hiding in the dark. In reality, they're glowing like bonfires on a thermal camera. At 2:08 a.m., the swarm crosses the 20-mile perimeter. This is the danger zone. At this range, a swarm of this magnitude usually overwhelms a standard defense grid. But the U.S. Navy does not rely on a standard grid. They are about to introduce the attackers to the concept of the electronic lobotomy. Launching from the deck of the carrier is not a fighter jet, but the EA-18G Growler. This aircraft carries no bombs. It carries something far more dangerous. It carries the ability to rewrite the enemy's reality. As the Growler screams overhead, it doesn't just jam the enemy's control signals, it hijacks them. Utilizing the next-generation jammer, the Growler isolates the control frequencies of the autonomous drones. It initiates the Day 0 cyber kinetic protocol. It inserts a ghost code into their guidance chips. Suddenly, the enemy operators back on the mainland watch in horror as their screens glitch. Half of their drone swarm doesn't just stop. The machines violently turn into one another. It is a fratricidal loop induced by American electronic warfare. 200 drones collide in midair, raining burning plastic and lithium debris into the sea without a single shot being fired by the ship's guns. The enemy swarm has just been effectively lobotomized. Their screens are flooded with fake targets, turning their own technology into an American toy. But 300 targets remain. The fast attack boats, manned by fanatical commandos, press forward through the debris field. They are now within 10 miles. They believe they have passed the electronic wall. They are now entering the kinetic meat grinder. At 2:12 a.m., the captain of a USS Abraham Lincoln authorizes weapons free. The defense of the carrier shifts from the digital to the physical. This is where the sheer, raw power of the Ford-class and Nimitz-class designs becomes apparent. We are talking about the steel porcupine. The first layer of hard defense activates. The rim. 116 rolling airframe missiles streak from their launchers. These are not long-range interceptors. They are agile, heat-seeking watchdogs designed to snap the necks of incoming threats at close range. They do not miss. One by one, the lead attack boats are vaporized in flashes of orange fire. But there are still too many of them. The enemy is banking on the fact that the ship cannot fire fast enough to stop them all. They forgot about the Phalanx. As the remaining boats cross the 2-mile mark, the Phalanx close-in weapon systems, the R2D2S of the naval world, spin up. These rotary cannons are the final word in point defense. They do not fire in bursts. They fire a continuous stream of tungsten armor-piercing rounds at 4,500 rounds per minute. The sound is not a machine gun. It is a chainsaw tearing through the sky. The lead boats are not just sunk, they are shredded. The 20mm rounds chew through fiberglass hulls, engines, and crew with indifferent mechanical precision. The ocean surface around the carrier is whipped into a white froth of impacting rounds. It is a wall of lead that nothing biological or mechanical can pass through. The swarm is hitting a brick wall, moving at Mach speeds. A helicopter attempting to enter this kill zone will be turned into aluminum confetti in less than 2 seconds. At 2:15 a.m., the attack has faltered. What was meant to be a glorious overwhelm strategy has turned into a debris field. But the U.S. Navy is not content with simply surviving. In American military doctrine, defense is just the prelude to a disproportionate offense. The enemy made a critical error when they launched this attack. They assumed the carrier was the target. They failed to realize the carrier is actually a mobile airbase capable of projecting power hundreds of miles inland. While the Phalanx systems are still cooling down, the flight deck is alive with organized chaos. The electromagnetic aircraft launch system, or EMALS, is cycling faster than steam catapults ever could. F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters are being hurled into the night sky. These jets are not hunting the boats. The boats are already dead. The F-35s are hunting the source. The P-8 Poseidon, loitering at 30,000 feet, has been performing a forensic audit of the radio signals used to control the swarm. It hasn't just been listening, it has been triangulating. It has traced the command signal back to a specific hardened bunker complex 300 miles away, hidden deep within a coastal mountain range. The enemy thought they were safe operating from a remote site. They thought they were anonymous. They were wrong. The Poseidon transmits the coordinates to the F-35 squadron via the data link. At 2:30 a.m., the retaliation. The F-35s do not need to enter the enemy's airspace to kill them. Utilizing the GBU-53 Stormbreaker smart bombs, they can release their payload from 40 miles away. These glide bombs are networked. They talk to each other. They share target data in real time. Back at the enemy command bunker, the generals are still trying to understand why their screens have gone dark. They're shouting orders to drone squadrons that no longer exist. They do not hear the Stormbreakers gliding silently through the pre-dawn darkness. They do not see the end coming. The first impact is not an explosion, but a penetration. The lead bombs are equipped with delayed fuses. They punch through the reinforced concrete of the bunker's roof before detonating deep inside the command center. The following impacts seal the exits. In seconds, the nerve center of the enemy's naval aggression is turned into a tomb of twisted rebar and silence. But the American response isn't finished. The logic of overkill dictates that the enemy must lose not just their current attack force, but their ability to ever threaten the fleet again. As the bunker smolders, the second wave arrives. This is not about precision. This is about erasure. 4B, 1B Lancer strategic bombers, supersonic monsters of the sky, receive their targeting data while loitering over the Arabian Sea. Each Lancer is a mobile death sentence, capable of erasing 24 strategic targets simultaneously without ever entering enemy radar range. They unleash a volley of JSSMER stealth cruise missiles. The targets are the enemy's coastal radar sites and the logistic airfields that supported the drone launch. At 2:35 a.m., the horizon lights up. It looks like a second sunrise. The cruise missiles slam into the enemy's support infrastructure with devastating accuracy. Fuel depots erupt into pillars of fire hundreds of feet high. Radar stations, the very eyes of the enemy's defense, are dismantled by high-explosive fragmentation warheads. The seismic sensors in the region register the impacts as minor earthquakes. This is no longer a battle. It is a brutal military deprogramming. Deep beneath the surface of the Persian Gulf, the final piece of the trap snaps shut. An Ohio-class guided missile submarine, silent and unseen, opens its vertical launch tubes. It ripples off a salvo of Tomahawk cruise missiles. These are not aimed at military targets. They are aimed at the enemy's power grid supporting the military district. At 2:40 a.m., the lights go out on the enemy coastline. The entire military sector is plunged into darkness. The message is clear. You try to blind us electronically, we will blind you physically. The enemy's ability to communicate, to coordinate, or even to see has been stripped away. They are left in the dark, surrounded by the wreckage of their own ambition. At 2:38 a.m., secondary threat vector detected. Just as the final Tomahawk impacts ripple across the enemy coastline, a new alert flashes across the Aegis display. This is not another drone cluster, not fast attack craft. The velocity reading is wrong for that. It is too clean, too vertical. Two land-based anti-ship ballistic missiles have ignited from deep inland, rising through the atmosphere in twin pillars of flame. This is the contingency layer of the swarm doctrine, the hammer designed to fall while the fleet is distracted by chaos at sea. The enemy believed saturation would force confusion. They believed one layer would slip through. The SBY. One radar aboard the escorting destroyer locks instantly. There is no search phase, no uncertainty. The tracks are firm within milliseconds. Trajectory prediction computes in 1.7 seconds. Impact window, 82 seconds. The numbers appear on the tactical display like a countdown to extinction. There is no panic on the bridge. Voices remain calm. Procedures are automatic. This is precisely what the Aegis combat system was engineered to defeat. The Ticonderoga-class cruiser embedded within the strike group initiates a track-via missile solution. Target discrimination algorithms strip away decoys and debris in microseconds. 2SM. 3 interceptors launch in violent columns of white fire, tearing upward through the humid Gulf night. They are not chasing the ballistic weapons. They are solving geometry. They are calculating a point in space where two objects will cease to exist. 40 miles above the Earth, beyond breathable air and below orbital velocity, the first SM-3 executes a kinetic hit-to-kill intercept. There is no explosive warhead, no dramatic fidevad, just physics at Mach 10. The incoming missile converts instantly into a cloud of metallic vapor and fragmented casing. Energy replaces matter. The equation balances. The second hostile missile partially fragments under proximity tracking interference, but continues descending in unstable pieces. Even broken, it remains lethal. Layer 3 activates. An F-35C Lightning II, already airborne, receives the updated track via cooperative engagement capability. The pilot never visually sees the target. The N/APG 81 radar paints it as a digital ghost. Data from the cruiser, destroyer, and space-based sensors merges into a single firing solution. A ripple launch of AM-120D missiles slices into the darkness. At hypersonic closing speeds, the intercept occurs before the debris cluster can stabilize. The sky flashes once, a hard white bloom against blackness. Fragments scatter, splashing harmlessly into the Gulf 12 miles from the carrier. The ballistic contingency has been erased. At 2:39 a.m., acoustic sensors now register a different anomaly. High-speed cavitation signatures below the thermal layer. possibly torpedoes, possibly a submarine attempting to exploit the distraction above the surface. The enemy's doctrine was layered for a reason. If air fails, try sea. If sea fails, try beneath it. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer USS Fitzgerald responds instantly, deploying Nixie-towed decoys while executing a high-speed evasive turn. Wake turbulence churns behind her hull as electronic countermeasures flood the water column with false acoustic returns. Simultaneously, an MH-60 or Seahawk helicopter lifts from the deck and races toward the suspected launch corridor, dipping active sonar into black water. Within minutes, triangulation is complete. A hostile submarine silhouette resolves on the tactical screen. Range closes. Authorization granted. AMK 54 lightweight torpedo drops cleanly from the helicopter and enters the water with a muted splash. Its onboard seeker activates, hunting by sound, adjusting course autonomously. Seconds later, a deep underwater detonation rolls through the Gulf. The cavitation signature vanishes. The hostile submarine goes silent. Air, sea, space, cyber, subsurface. The kill chain has now extended across every domain of modern warfare within a 10-minute window. The swarm was never a single attack. It was a layered test of system endurance, and each layer has collapsed. At 2:45 a.m., the silence returns to the Strait of Hormuz. The radar screens on the USS Abraham Lincoln are clear. The cloud is gone. The swarm is gone. The command center that launched it is gone. This simulation reveals a brutal truth about modern naval warfare. The enemy spent years building hundreds of drones. They spent millions of dollars training commandos. They crafted a plan to exploit the perceived weakness of a large, expensive target. And in 45 minutes, that entire investment was erased by a system that integrates space, cyber, and kinetic warfare into a single fluid motion. The breakdown of the engagement shows that the enemy inflicted zero casualties. They caused zero damage to the hull of the carrier. In exchange, they lost 500 naval assets, their primary coastal command bunker, their coastal radar network, and their entire senior leadership for the region. This is what military strategists call overkill. It is not accidental. It is the core design philosophy of the U.S. Navy. The goal is not a fair fight. The goal is to make the cost of pulling the trigger so astronomically high that the enemy is terrified to even load the weapon. Let's dissect the specific failures of the swarm strategy in this scenario. First, the fallacy of saturation. The enemy believed that firing 500 cheap weapons would exhaust the magazine depth of the carrier group. They calculated the number of interceptor missiles on the U.S. ships and thought they had the math on their side. But they failed to account for the soft kill capabilities. The electronic warfare suite of the Growlers and the shipboard SLQ. 32 systems neutralized 40% of the threat without firing a single bullet. You cannot exhaust a magazine that is made of electrons. Second, the transparency of the battlefield. The enemy assumed they could hide their small boats in the clutter of the ocean waves. They relied on the idea that radar struggles to pick up small fiberglass hulls. But they were fighting against a multi-spectral sensor net. The Space Force satellites saw the heat. The P-8 Poseidon heard the engines. The drones overhead saw the wake. There is no place to hide in a modern, sensor-saturated environment. Third, the speed of the kill chain. In the past, it took minutes to identify a target, relay the coordinates, and authorize a strike. In this simulation, that cycle happened in seconds. The AI-assisted combat systems on the Ford-class carrier automated the prioritization of targets. The machines decided what to kill first, faster than a human could blink. The enemy was fighting at the speed of human decision-making. The U.S. Navy was fighting at the speed of light. The lesson for any nation observing this simulation is clear. In the 21st century, if you attack the U.S. Navy, you aren't fighting a ship. You are fighting a planetary network that knows you are coming before you even start your engine. You are fighting a system that can blind you, deafen you, and erase you from the map in less time than it takes to watch a sitcom. The swarm strategy is dangerous. Yes, but against a layered, network defense, it is simply a very expensive way to commit suicide. The waters of the Arabian Sea are deep, and they're filled with the wreckage of those who underestimated the lethality of the American fleet. As the sun rises over the horizon, the carrier turns into the wind. Flight operations continue. The giant remains untouched. The message has been sent, written in fire and steel across the morning sky. Do not touch the boats. What do you think? Is the age of the aircraft carrier over, or does this simulation prove that high-tech defense can still defeat mass swarm attacks? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more strategic breakdowns of modern military scenarios, make sure to like and subscribe. Only the paranoid survive. Stay tuned.